I was sitting in the cold chair in the lawyer's office. My hands were trembling, but I tried not to notice. Only a week had passed since my mother's funeral, and I was still struggling to accept the reality. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was a gray-haired man in his 60s. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the documents in front of him with a serious expression. My brother David was sitting next to me, but there was a strange distance between us. We hadn't spoken much since the funeral. Mrs. Sarah Miller's last will and testament, Mr. Henderson began with his official voice. I know this is a difficult time for both of you, but we need to go through these documents. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone in the room could hear it. Mom had been sick for 2 years. Cancer had taken her slowly, painfully. During those 2 years, I had been by her side every day. I had taken her to doctor's appointments, helped her with her medication, held her hand during chemotherapy sessions. David, on the other hand, would visit once a month, stay for an hour, and leave. The house at 245 Maple Street, the lawyer continued, along with all furnishings and belongings, is left to David Miller. I felt like the ground was slipping from under my feet. The house where I grew up, where I had spent my entire childhood, the house I had been taking care of for the past 2 years. The savings account containing $180,000 is also left to David Miller. My mouth went dry. I couldn't speak. This couldn't be real. The car, jewelry, and all other valuable items are left to David Miller. I looked at my brother. There was no surprise on his face. As if he already knew all of this. As if this was exactly what he expected. And for Emma Miller. The lawyer paused and looked at me. There is only this letter. A simple white envelope. My name was written on it in my mother's familiar handwriting. That was it. After 35 years of being her daughter, after 2 years of caring for her day and night, this was all I was getting. David reached out and took the house keys from the lawyer. The metallic sound they made echoed in my ears like a death knell. Emma? The lawyer was looking at me with concern. Would you like to read the letter now, or? I need some air, I managed to say and stood up. My legs felt like jelly, but I forced myself to walk to the door. Outside, the October wind hit my face like a slap. I leaned against the brick wall of the building and tried to breathe. The letter in my hand felt like it weighed a ton. David came out after me. Emma, look. Don't. I raised my hand to stop him. Just don't. You don't understand. Maybe there's a reason. A reason? I laughed, but it came out as a sob. What reason could there be, David? What reason could justify this? He was quiet. We both knew there was no reasonable explanation for what had just happened. I took care of her, I whispered. For 2 years, I put my life on hold. I lost my job because I couldn't leave her alone. I ended my engagement because Tom couldn't understand why I spent all my time at the hospital. I gave up everything for her. I know, David said quietly. Do you? Do you really know? I turned to face him. Where were you when she was throwing up all night after chemo? Where were you when she cried because she lost her hair? Where were you when she was scared and alone at 3 a.m.? David looked down. I couldn't handle seeing her like that. But I could. You think it was easy for me? Tears were streaming down my face now. I loved her just as much as you did. Maybe more. But I stayed. I fought for her until the end. Emma. And this is what I get. A letter. Well, you get everything. I clutched the envelope tighter. I don't even know if I want to read this. But I knew I had to. I needed to understand why the woman who gave birth to me, who raised me, who I thought loved me, had chosen to hurt me so deeply with her final act. Hashtag the childhood I thought I knew. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the apartment I could barely afford after leaving my job, and stared at the letter. I hadn't opened it yet. Part of me was afraid of what it might contain. Part of me hoped it would explain everything, make it all make sense somehow. I poured myself a glass of wine and let my mind wander back to my childhood. Maybe I had missed the signs. Maybe there were clues I hadn't seen. I was born 3 years after David. Mom used to tell everyone how much she wanted a daughter after having a son. She would dress me up in pretty dresses, do my hair with ribbons, and show me off to her friends. My little princess, she would call me. But as I grew older, things changed. I became more independent, more opinionated. I wanted to play soccer instead of taking ballet lessons. I preferred jeans to dresses. I was louder, more assertive than she wanted me to be. Why can't you be more like David? She would often ask. David was quiet, obedient, always did what he was told. He never questioned her decisions, never talked back, never caused any trouble. I, on the other hand, was constantly challenging her. When she said I couldn't go to a sleepover, I would argue. When she chose my clothes, I would complain. When she set rules, I would try to bend them. "You're so stubborn, Emma," she would say with exasperation. "Just like your father." My father. He had left when I was 12 and David was 15. One day he was there, the next day he was gone. Mom never talked about why he left, just that he did. And after that, any time I did something she didn't like, she would compare me to him. "You have his eyes," she would say, and it never sounded like a compliment. "You have his temper. You have his selfish streak." Over the years, these comments had slowly chipped away at my confidence. I started to wonder if maybe I really was like him. Maybe I really was selfish and stubborn and difficult to love. David, meanwhile, could do no wrong. When he got mediocre grades, Mom would praise his effort. When I got straight A's, she would ask why I didn't also participate in more extracurricular activities. When David forgot to do his chores, she would do them herself with a smile. When I forgot, I would get a lecture about responsibility. I thought it was just typical mother-daughter dynamics. All my friends complained about their mothers being harder on them than their brothers. I figured it was normal. But now, sitting in my apartment with that letter in my hands, I wondered if there had been something deeper. Something I had never understood. I remembered high school graduation. I was valedictorian, had a full scholarship to college, and was accepted to 3 different universities. Mom had attended the ceremony, but she seemed distant. When people congratulated her on having such a successful daughter, she would just smile politely and change the subject. David had graduated 2 years earlier with average grades and no clear plan for the future. But Mom had thrown him a big party, invited all the relatives, and talked endlessly about how proud she was of her son. I had gotten a dinner at Applebee's with just the 3 of us. In college, I called home every week. Mom would talk for maybe 5 minutes before handing the phone to David if he was there. If he wasn't, she would find an excuse to get off the call quickly. When David moved back home after dropping out of community college, Mom welcomed him with open arms. When I graduated summa cum laude and wanted to move back home for a few months while I looked for a job, she said it would be better if I found my own place. "You're so independent, Emma," she had said. "You don't need us like David does." But I did need her. I needed my mother's love and support just as much as David did. I just wasn't as good at showing it, or maybe I wasn't as good at being the kind of daughter she wanted. Hashtag the engagement that changed everything. 2 years ago, everything had seemed perfect in my life. I had a great job as a marketing manager, a beautiful apartment, and I was engaged to Tom Richardson, a kind and successful lawyer who loved me unconditionally. Tom had proposed on a beach in Hawaii during what was supposed to be the vacation of a lifetime. We had been together for 3 years, and I had never been happier. He was everything I thought I wanted in a partner: stable, ambitious, supportive, and he made me laugh. We started planning our wedding immediately. I was so excited to share the news with Mom. I thought this might be the thing that would finally bring us closer together. Planning a wedding was something mothers and daughters were supposed to do together, right? But when I called to tell her about the engagement, her response was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, dear," she had said. "Tom seems like a good man." That was it. No excitement, no questions about the proposal, no requests to see the ring. Just a polite acknowledgement, like I had told her I bought a new car. When I asked if she wanted to come dress shopping with me, she said she was busy. When I asked for her opinion on venues, she said whatever I chose would be fine. When I asked if she had any family traditions she wanted us to include in the ceremony, she said no. I was hurt, but I tried not to let it show. I told myself she was just not the sentimental type. Some mothers weren't into wedding planning. It didn't mean she wasn't happy for me. The wedding was planned for June. But in March, Mom called with news that would change everything. "I have cancer," she said simply. No build-up, no gentle way of breaking the news. Just a statement of fact. I dropped everything. Literally everything. I requested a leave of absence from work, I moved back to my childhood town, and I dedicated myself to taking care of her. Tom was understanding at first. "Of course you need to be with your mother," he said. "We can postpone the wedding. Family comes first." But as weeks turned into months, and I showed no signs of returning to my normal life, his patience began to wear thin. "Emma, you can't put your entire life on hold indefinitely," he would say during our increasingly rare phone calls. "Your mother has doctors and nurses. She doesn't need you there every single day." But she did need me. At least, I thought she did. She was scared, and sick, and alone. David would visit occasionally, but he couldn't handle being in the hospital for more than an hour at a time. The smell, the sounds, the reality of Mom's condition, it was too much for him. So I became her primary caregiver. I took her to every appointment, I researched every treatment option, I made sure she took her medications on time. I held her hair back when she threw up, I rubbed her feet when they ached from the chemo, I slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair during her overnight stays. And slowly, I thought we were becoming closer. She would hold my hand during the treatments. She would ask me to read to her when she couldn't sleep. She would tell me stories about her childhood that she had never shared before. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like we were connecting as mother and daughter. I felt needed, wanted, loved. Tom didn't understand. "She's manipulating you, Emma," he said during one of our fights. "Can't you see that? She's using her illness to control you." I was furious. "How can you say that? She's dying, Tom. She's scared and alone and she needs me." "What about what you need?" he asked. "What about your job, your life, our relationship? What about the wedding we've been planning for a year?" "The wedding can wait," I said. "My mother is more important than a party." It's not just a party, and you know it. It's our future. It's us making a commitment to build a life together. But how can we do that when you're completely consumed by your mother's needs? I accused him of being selfish. He accused me of being blind to manipulation. We said things we couldn't take back. And eventually, he gave up. I can't compete with your mother, he said the last time we spoke. I can't be with someone who will always put everyone else's needs before our relationship. I love you, Emma, but I can't do this anymore. He returned the ring by mail. No phone call, no final conversation, just a small package with the diamond solitaire I had admired so many times and a note that said, "I hope you find what you're looking for." I cried for days. But I told myself I had made the right choice. Tom hadn't understood the importance of family. When the chips were down, he had abandoned me. I was better off without him. Mom, surprisingly, didn't seem particularly bothered by the breakup. If he really loved you, he would have waited, she said with a shrug. You're better off finding out now rather than after you were married. At the time, I thought she was being supportive. Now I wondered if there was something else behind her reaction. #the final months. The last 6 months of Mom's life were the hardest. The cancer had spread, and the treatments were no longer working. We transitioned from fighting the disease to managing her comfort. I quit my job officially and moved into the house to take care of her full-time. David helped with expenses, but he still couldn't handle being around the day-to-day reality of her condition. I don't know how you do it, he would say to me. You're so strong. But I didn't feel strong. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained, and sometimes resentful. I loved my mother, but taking care of a dying person is incredibly difficult. There were days when she was angry and took it out on me. There were nights when she was in pain and nothing I did could help. There were moments when I questioned everything about my life and my choices. But there were also beautiful moments. Quiet conversations in the early morning when she would tell me about her dreams from the night before. Afternoons when we would look through old photo albums together. Evenings when we would watch her favorite movies and she would tell me stories about watching them when she was young. I treasured these moments. They made all the sacrifice feel worth it. 3 weeks before she died, Mom seemed to rally. She had more energy, she was eating better, and she was more talkative than she had been in months. I thought maybe we were getting a miracle. Emma, she said one evening as I was getting her ready for bed. I need to tell you something. What is it, Mom? She looked at me for a long time, as if she was trying to decide something. Finally, she shook her head. Never mind. It's not important. Are you sure? You can tell me anything. I know, sweetheart. I know. She hugged me then, tighter than she had in years. I thought it was because she was feeling better, because she was grateful for everything I had done for her. Now I wondered if it was something else entirely. #the end. Mom died on a Tuesday morning in October. I was holding her hand when it happened. It was peaceful, she just stopped breathing. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. David arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later. He broke down when he saw her, crying harder than I had seen him cry since we were children. I should have been here, he kept saying. I should have been with her. It's okay, I told him, even though I was angry. She knew you loved her. The funeral was small. Mom hadn't had many close friends, and most of our relatives lived far away. David gave a beautiful eulogy about her strength and grace. I couldn't bring myself to speak. I was too exhausted, too grief-stricken, too overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had lost. After the funeral, people kept telling me how lucky Mom had been to have me. How wonderful it was that I had sacrificed so much to take care of her. How proud she must have been of her devoted daughter. I believed them. I thought I had done the right thing. I thought I had honored her and shown her how much I loved her. And then came the reading of the will. Sitting in my apartment now, I realized I had been living in a fantasy. I had convinced myself that those last 2 years had brought us closer together, that I had finally earned her love and approval. But the will told a different story. The will said that even after everything I had given up for her, even after all the love and care I had provided, I still wasn't worthy of her trust or her inheritance. I was just the daughter who got a letter. I looked at the envelope again. My hands had stopped shaking, but my heart was still racing. Whatever was inside this letter, it was going to change everything. It was going to explain why the woman I had devoted 2 years of my life to caring for had chosen to reject me so completely in the end. I took a deep breath, tore open the envelope, and began to read. My hands trembled as I unfolded the single sheet of paper. Mom's handwriting, usually so neat and controlled, was shaky, probably written during one of her final days when the medication made everything difficult. My dear Emma. If you are reading this, then I am gone and you know about the will. I imagine you are angry, confused, and hurt. You have every right to be. But before you hate me completely, I need you to understand why I made the choices I did, There are things about our family that you don't know. Things I should have told you years ago but couldn't find the courage to say. Things that explain why I could never love you the way you deserve to be loved, Emma, you are not your brother's sister. I stopped reading. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. I read the line again, then again, trying to make sense of what she was saying. Not David's sister. What did that mean? Your father and I, we had problems from the beginning of our marriage. He was never faithful, never committed to our family the way I needed him to be. When David was born, I thought having a child might change him, might make him want to be a better husband and father. For a while, it seemed to work, but by the time David was 3, your father was back to his old ways. He was staying out late, coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, making excuses for why he couldn't be home for dinner or bedtime stories, I was lonely, Emma. Lonelier than you can imagine. I felt like I was raising David by myself, like I was married to a stranger who happened to live in my house, That's when I met James. I had never heard that name before, but somehow, reading it made my stomach drop. James was David's pediatrician. He was kind, gentle, everything your father wasn't. He listened when I talked about my fears for David's health, my worries about being a good mother. He made me feel seen, valued, important, Our affair lasted 6 months. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. For the first time in years, I felt alive, loved, desired. James made me remember who I was before I became just a wife and mother, When I found out I was pregnant with you, I didn't know whose child you were. Your father and I were still intimate occasionally, despite our problems. The timing made it impossible to be certain, I ended things with James immediately. I couldn't continue the affair while carrying a child who might be his. I told myself that you were your father's daughter, that our family could stay intact, that no one ever had to know about my mistake, But when you were born, Emma, I knew. You looked nothing like your father or David. You had James's eyes, his nose, his stubborn chin. As you grew older, the resemblance became even stronger. Every time I looked at you, I saw him. I saw my betrayal, my weakness, my sin, Asterisk your father suspected, I think. He never said anything directly, but I could see it in the way he looked at you, the way he pulled away from our family. When he left when you were 12, his last words to me were, I hope you're happy with what you've done. Asterisk. Asterisk I tried to love you the way a mother should love her daughter. But every day, you reminded me of the worst decision I ever made. You reminded me that I had betrayed my husband, destroyed my marriage, and brought a child into the world under false pretenses, asterisk. Asterisk David is my legitimate son, my only real child. You are the living proof of my adultery. I couldn't leave you anything in my will because you don't really belong to this family. You belong to James, even though he never knew you existed, asterisk. Asterisk I know this is cruel. I know this will hurt you more than anything I've ever done. But I couldn't die with this secret. You deserve to know the truth about who you are, even if that truth is painful, asterisk. Asterisk his name is Dr. James Morrison. He still lives in Portland. He never married, never had children. Sometimes I wonder if he suspected, if he's been waiting all these years for someone to tell him he has a daughter, asterisk. Asterisk I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I couldn't love you properly. I'm sorry I made you feel unwanted. I'm sorry I couldn't be the mother you deserved, asterisk. Asterisk but I won't apologize for protecting David. He is innocent in all of this. He deserves the inheritance because he is the only legitimate heir, asterisk. Asterisk love. Mom asterisk. Asterisk P.S. There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 247. The key is taped under the drawer in my jewelry box. Inside you'll find everything, photos, letters, medical records. Everything you need to prove who your real father is, if you choose to contact him. Asterisk. The letter slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor. I sat there in complete silence, staring at nothing, trying to process what I had just read. I wasn't David's sister. I wasn't Dad's daughter. I was the product of an affair, a mistake, a reminder of my mother's betrayal. Everything suddenly made sense. The way she had always kept me at arm's length. The way she compared me to my father with such disgust. The way she seemed to love David effortlessly while struggling to show me any affection at all. I had spent my entire life wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't earn her love. And now I knew. It wasn't because I was stubborn or difficult or too much like the man who abandoned us. It was because I was living evidence of her adultery, a constant reminder of her guilt and shame. #the confrontation with David. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that letter. It could have been minutes or hours. Eventually, my phone rang, jolting me back to reality. It was David. Emma? Are you okay? You left the lawyer's office pretty upset, and I... Did you know? The words came out harsh, accusatory. Did I know what? About the letter. About what's in it. Did you know why she left everything to you? There was a long pause. Too long. David. Did you know? Emma, maybe we should talk in person. Answer the question. I was shouting now, all my hurt and anger pouring out. Did you know that I'm not your sister? Another pause. Then, quietly, yes. The world tilted. I felt like I was falling through space. How long? I whispered. I've known since you were born. Mom, she told me when I was 6. She said it was important that I understand why Dad was so angry all the time, why he eventually left. You've known for 30 years and you never said anything? What was I supposed to say, Emma? How do you tell someone that? And honestly, I didn't think it mattered. You were my sister in every way that counted. Except when it came to the inheritance. That wasn't my decision. I had no idea she was going to do this. I swear to you, I thought she would split everything equally between us. But you're not going to refuse it, are you? I laughed bitterly. You're not going to do the right thing and share it with me. Emma. Are you? He was quiet for so long I thought he had hung up. I can't, he finally said. I'm sorry, but I can't. I have student loans, credit card debt. Sarah and I want to start a family, but we can't afford it right now. This inheritance, it's going to change our lives. What about my life, David? What about the fact that I gave up everything to take care of her? What about the fact that I lost my job, my fiancé, my entire future because I thought she needed me? I know. I know you sacrificed everything, and I'm grateful. But Emma, you chose to do that. No one forced you. I chose to do it because I thought she was my mother. I thought I was caring for the woman who gave birth to me, who loved me despite our difficulties. I thought I was being a good daughter. You were being a good daughter. Biology doesn't change that. Doesn't it? Because apparently it changed everything for her. And it's changing everything for you too. That's not fair. Fair? I was screaming now. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I spent 2 years of my life caring for a woman who could barely stand to look at me? Is it fair that she let me believe I was part of this family when I was really just a reminder of her mistakes? Is it fair that you get to inherit everything while I get a letter explaining why I was never really wanted? Emma, please. Is it fair that I have to find out at 35 years old that my entire life has been a lie? I hung up on him. Then I turned off my phone and threw it across the room. ## the search for truth. For 3 days, I didn't leave my apartment. I called in sick to my temp job. I had been doing freelance marketing work since quitting my full-time position. I barely ate. I just sat on my couch, holding that letter, trying to figure out what to do with this information. Dr. James Morrison. My real father. A man who had no idea I existed. Part of me wanted to forget I had ever read the letter. I could go on with my life, pretend nothing had changed. David and I could figure out some way to repair our relationship. I could find a new job, maybe even reach out to Tom and see if there was any chance of reconciliation. But I couldn't unknow what I now knew. I couldn't pretend that my entire identity hadn't been shattered. On Thursday morning, I made a decision. I drove to my childhood home, David's house now, and used my key to let myself in. He was at work, which was perfect. I needed to find that safety deposit box key. The house felt different now. Foreign. It no longer felt like the place where I grew up. It felt like a place where I had been tolerated, allowed to exist but never truly welcomed. Mom's bedroom was exactly as she had left it. David hadn't touched anything yet. Her jewelry box sat on the dresser, still containing all the pieces I remembered from my childhood. I found the key exactly where the letter said it would be, taped under the bottom drawer. Such a small thing to hold such enormous secrets. The drive to the bank felt like driving to my own execution. Whatever was in that safety deposit box was going to confirm everything in the letter, make it all real and undeniable. The bank manager, Mrs. Chen, remembered me from all the times I had come with Mom for various financial matters during her illness. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she said as she led me to the vault. "Your mother was a lovely woman." I just nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. Box 247 was small but heavy. Mrs. Chen left me alone in the private viewing room, and with shaking hands, I opened it. The first thing I saw was a photograph. A man with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing a white doctor's coat. He was smiling at the camera, and I felt like I was looking into a mirror. The resemblance was undeniable. This was clearly my father. Underneath the photo were medical records. Paternity test results that Mom had apparently gotten done without anyone's knowledge when I was a baby. 99.7% probability that James Morrison was my biological father. There were also letters. Love letters that James had written to my mother during their affair. They were beautiful, passionate, full of promises about the life they could have together if she would just leave her husband. My dearest Margaret, one began. Every moment we spend together feels like a gift. I know this situation is complicated, but I can't help believing that we're meant to be together. You deserve so much more than what you have. You deserve to be loved completely, unconditionally, the way I love you. Reading his words, I felt a pang of sadness for both of them. They had clearly cared for each other deeply. And yet their love had created me, and I had become the source of my mother's shame rather than her joy. The last item in the box was a sealed envelope with my name on it, written in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper with an address and phone number. Dr. James Morrison's contact information. My hands were shaking as I put everything back in the box. I needed time to think, to process, to decide what to do with this information. But as I was leaving the bank, my phone rang. It was David. Emma, we need to talk. I know you came to the house. I know you found the key. How? The alarm system sends me alerts. Look, I'm sorry about how our conversation went the other day. I want to make this right. How? I asked. How can you possibly make this right? Meet me for dinner tonight. Romano's at 7. Please. Let me try to explain. I almost said no. But I realized I needed answers that only David could give. He had known the truth my entire life. He had watched me struggle to understand why our mother treated me differently. He had seen me sacrifice everything to take care of her, knowing all along that she could barely stand to look at me. I needed to understand how he could have stayed silent for so long. #dinner with the truth. Romano's was a small Italian restaurant where our family used to go for special occasions when we were kids. Sitting in the familiar red vinyl booth, surrounded by the smell of garlic and marinara sauce, I felt like I was in some alternate universe where everything looked the same but nothing was real. David was already there when I arrived, nervously fidgeting with his wedding ring. He looked like he hadn't slept since our phone call. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down across from him. I almost didn't. We ordered in silence. I wasn't hungry, but I needed something to do with my hands. When the waitress left, David finally looked at me directly. I want you to know that I never wanted things to happen this way, he began. But you let them happen this way. For 30 years. What was I supposed to do, Emma? I was 6 years old when Mom told me. I didn't understand what it meant. I just knew it was a secret, something I could never tell anyone. You could have told me when we got older. When I was 18, 25, 30. You had plenty of opportunities. And say what? Hey Emma, by the way, you're not really my sister and Mom has never been able to love you properly because you remind her of her affair? How do you think that would have gone? I had to admit he had a point. It wouldn't have been easy news to receive at any age. But you watched me struggle, I said. You watched me try so hard to earn her love, to understand why I never felt good enough. You watched me give up everything to take care of her these past 2 years. How could you just sit there and say nothing? David's eyes filled with tears. Because I hoped that maybe, at the end, she would finally be able to love you the way you deserved. I thought maybe caring for her would heal whatever was broken between you. But it didn't. No. It didn't. And I'm so sorry about that. Our food arrived, but neither of us touched it. Tell me about him, I said. Tell me about James Morrison. David looked surprised. You want to know about him? He's my father. I have a right to know. David nodded slowly. He was a good man, from what I remember. Kind, patient. He was always gentle with me during checkups, never made me feel scared or uncomfortable. Mom, she was different around him. Happier. More relaxed. Did you like him? I was just a kid, but yeah. I liked him. He paid attention to me in a way Dad never did. He would ask about school, remember things I had told him during previous visits. When Mom told me about the affair, I was actually kind of glad. I thought maybe James would become my stepdad, and we could be a real family. But that didn't happen. No. Mom ended it when she found out she was pregnant with you. She chose to stay with Dad and try to make the marriage work. Because of you. Because of both of us. She didn't want to break up our family. I laughed bitterly. So instead she just made my life miserable for 35 years. Emma. Do you think he knows about me? James? David considered this. I don't think so. If he knew he had a daughter, I think he would have tried to contact you by now. From what I remember, he seemed like the type of man who would want to be involved in his child's life. Maybe he tried and Mom prevented it. Maybe. We sat in silence for a while, both lost in our own thoughts. I found his contact information, I finally said. David's head snapped up. You're going to call him? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I need to know who I really am. Emma, you know who you are. You're my sister. You're the strongest, most compassionate person I know. You're the woman who sacrificed everything to take care of our mother, even when she didn't deserve it. Biology doesn't change any of that. Doesn't it? Because it seems to have changed everything else. David reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I love you. I have always loved you. You are my sister in every way that matters. Then share the inheritance with me. He pulled his hand back. Emma. If I'm really your sister, if you really love me, then do the right thing. Split it 50-50. That's what would have happened if Mom hadn't been so consumed by guilt and shame. I can't. I told you, Sarah and I. So your wife's desires are more important than your sister's welfare? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, David. But you have the power to make it right. You're choosing not to. He was quiet for a long moment. What if I helped you get on your feet? Gave you enough to get settled somewhere new, maybe go back to school or start a business? Like a consolation prize? Like family helping family. I stared at him across the table. This man I had thought was my brother my entire life. Who had shared my childhood, my secrets, my life. Who had known the truth about my parentage since he was 6 years old and had never said a word. I need time to think, I said, standing up. Emma, please don't leave like this. I'm not leaving angry, David. I'm leaving because I need to figure out who I am now that everything I thought I knew about myself is a lie. I walked out of the restaurant and got in my car. But instead of driving home, I found myself heading north, toward Portland. Toward the man who might be able to tell me who I really was. Toward my real father. Asterisk. James. The drive to Portland took 3 hours, but it felt like a lifetime. With every mile, I questioned what I was doing. Was I about to destroy another innocent person's life by showing up with this bombshell? But I couldn't turn back. I needed answers. I needed to understand where I came from, who I really was. It was nearly 10 p.m. when I reached the address. The house was a modest 2-story colonial with a well-maintained garden and a porch light casting warm glow over the front steps. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the house where my biological father lived. Part of me wanted to drive away and pretend this day had never happened. But I had come too far to turn back now. The walk to his front door was the longest of my life. When I heard footsteps approaching, I almost ran. The door opened, and I found myself face to face with the man from the photograph. 35 years older, with gray hair and lines around his eyes, but unmistakably the same person. The resemblance between us was striking. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice kind but puzzled. I opened my mouth but no words came. How do you tell someone they have a daughter they never knew about? "I'm sorry," I finally managed. "I know this is strange, but my name is Emma Miller. I think you might be my father." The color drained from his face. He gripped the doorframe. "Margaret's daughter," he whispered. It wasn't a question. He knew immediately who I was. "Yes," I said, tears starting to fall. "She died 2 weeks ago. She left me a letter explaining everything." He stared at me for a long moment, then stepped aside and gestured for me to come in. ## meeting my father. Dr. James Morrison's living room was comfortable, filled with bookshelves and family photos, though I noticed they were all of nieces and nephews, not his own children. "Please, sit down," he said, his hands shaking slightly. "Can I get you water?" "Water would be good," I said, mainly because I needed a moment to collect myself. While he was in the kitchen, I looked around. There were no signs of a wife or family. Mom's letter had said he never married, never had children. He returned with 2 glasses and sat across from me. "I wondered," he said finally. "All these years, I wondered if maybe, but Margaret never said anything. She ended the affair when she found out she was pregnant with me. She wanted to save her marriage." "And did she? Save her marriage?" "No. Her husband left when I was 12. He suspected, I think." James nodded slowly. "Margaret was remarkable. Beautiful, intelligent, kind. But troubled. Her marriage was making her miserable. She told me about the affair in her letter. She said you made her feel alive again." "I loved her," he said simply. "I would have married her if she had been free. I would have raised you as my own daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. Here was this stranger showing me more acceptance than my mother had in 35 years. "Why didn't you ever try to find out?" I asked. "If you suspected I might be yours?" "I couldn't. Margaret made it clear she wanted to stay with her husband. I had to respect that, even though it broke my heart." I pulled out the paternity test results and handed them to him. His hands trembled as he read. 99.7% probability, he read aloud. Then he looked up with tears in his eyes. "You're my daughter. My daughter." The way he said it, with such wonder, such joy, made me start crying again. This was how a father was supposed to react. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry you had to grow up without knowing who your real father was. It's not your fault. You didn't know." We talked for hours. He told me about his life, how he had never been able to settle down because he had never gotten over my mother. How he had dedicated himself to his medical practice but always felt like something was missing. I told him about my childhood, about always feeling like I didn't fit in my family, about the struggles with my mother. "She was ashamed," James said. "Not of you, but of what you represented. Margaret was proud, with strict ideas about right and wrong. Having an affair went against everything she believed about herself. But that wasn't my fault. No, absolutely not. You were an innocent child who deserved to be loved. That she couldn't separate her guilt from her feelings about you, that was her failing, not yours." It was nearly 3 a.m. when I realized how late it had gotten. "I should go," I said. "I need to drive back." "Absolutely not," James said firmly. "You're exhausted. I have a guest room. Stay the night, and we can talk more in the morning." "Are you sure?" "Emma," he said, and hearing him say my name felt like coming home. I just found out I have a daughter. I'm not letting you out of my sight until I know everything about you. Hashtag the phone call that changed everything. The next morning, James made an enormous breakfast. I wasn't sure what you liked, he said, looking almost shy. So I made everything. I called in sick to work today, he said as we sat down. I have 35 years of catching up to do with my daughter. My daughter. He kept saying it like he was trying out the words. We spent the morning looking through photo albums. James showed me pictures of his family, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins I had never known existed. They would have loved you, he said. They always wanted grandchildren. Around noon, my phone rang. It was David. Emma, where are you? I've been calling all night. I'm in Portland. I'm with James Morrison. Long silence. You found him. I found my father. Emma, please don't do anything rash. Come home and let's talk rationally. I am being rational, David. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. What does that mean? I looked at James, who was watching with concern. It means I'm staying in Portland. I'm going to get to know my real family. What about your life here? What life? I'm working temp jobs because I gave up my career. I'm living in a studio apartment because I spent all my savings on her medical expenses. What exactly am I coming back to? You're coming back to me. To the family you've always known. The family that lied to me for 35 years? The family that inherited everything while I got a letter explaining why I was never wanted? Emma, that's not fair. You know what's not fair, David? Watching me struggle my entire life to understand why I never felt like I belonged, and saying nothing. Keeping an inheritance that should be split between us. I told you, I can help you financially. I don't want your charity. I want what's rightfully mine. It's not rightfully yours according to Mom's will. Mom's will was written by a woman damaged by guilt and shame. Emma, please come home. I looked at James again. He nodded encouragingly. I'll make you a deal, I said. Split the inheritance 50-50, like Mom should have done, and I'll come back to settle my affairs. Keep it all, and you'll never see me again. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean that. I'm done begging for scraps from a family that never wanted me. I've found my real father. Emma. Those are your choices, David. Do the right thing, or lose your sister forever. I hung up and turned off my phone. That was brave, James said. Was it? Or was it stupid? Sometimes they're the same thing. You can't keep accepting less than you deserve. Hashtag the final revelation. 3 weeks later, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma? It's Sarah. David's wife. I was surprised. Sarah and I had never been particularly close. Hi, Sarah. I need to tell you something. About the inheritance. Sarah, if David sent you. He doesn't know I'm calling. Emma, I found something that changes everything. My heart started racing. What do you mean? I was organizing your mother's papers. I found another will. The world stopped spinning. What? A will dated 3 months before she died. Emma, in this will, she splits everything 50-50 between you and David. I sat down heavily. That's impossible. The lawyer only had the will your mother gave him. But this one is more recent and properly notarized. Legally, this supersedes the other will. Why wasn't this filed? I think she changed her mind at the last minute. The guilt took over, and she hid this will. I was crying now. Sarah, why are you telling me this? Because it's the right thing to do. And David doesn't know yet. Emma, there's something else. In this will, there's another letter addressed to you. What does it say? I haven't read it. It's sealed. But Emma, the fact that she wrote this will means she tried to do the right thing at the end. ## the second letter. Sarah drove to Portland that weekend with the new will and sealed letter. James was with me when I opened it with shaking hands. My dearest Emma. **I am dying, and I need to tell you the truth. Not the harsh truth from guilt and shame, but the real truth from love. You are my daughter. Not biologically, James gave you life, but in every way that matters. I carried you, held you, raised you. You are brilliant, compassionate, strong, and beautiful. Everything I hoped for in a daughter. That I couldn't show you proper love, that's my failure, not yours. I'm leaving you half of everything because that's what you deserve. Your rightful inheritance as my daughter. Find James. He deserves to know he has a daughter. You deserve to know your real father. I hope you can forgive me. Love and fear can exist in the same heart, and sometimes fear wins battles it shouldn't. But love wins the war, Emma. Love always wins the war. I love you. I have always loved you. Your mother. Margaret. I sobbed for an hour. James held me, letting me grieve for the relationship I'd lost and the love that had been there all along. ## the new beginning. The legal process took months, but the second will was valid. David didn't fight it, he was relieved to do the right thing. A year later, I was sitting in my new office in downtown Portland, running my successful consulting business. James had helped me start, and his connections were invaluable. More importantly, I was happy. I had a father who loved me unconditionally. I'd met his sister and my cousins, extended family who welcomed me with open arms. My phone rang, James calling. Emma, are you free for lunch? Of course. What's up? I'll tell you when I see you. But Emma? I'm proud of you. Proud of the woman you've become, proud to be your father. I hung up with tears of pure joy. I had spent 35 years wondering why I never felt like I belonged. Now I knew, I had been looking in the wrong place. Home wasn't where you came from, it was where you were loved and wanted. As I walked to meet James, I thought about my mother's final words, love wins the war. She had been right. Despite all the pain and secrets, love had won. I was living proof that it's never too late to find where you belong. The end.